Hi guys, welcome back to the channel.
So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than usual. Instead of our typical car content, we're actually going to be building a desk. With a lot of people working from home right now, we thought that it'd be a prime opportunity to build a new desk. We had some supplies lying around the garage, so some Brazilian walnut left over from an old project that we did, some MDF, and we wanted to do some welding, and so we got some steel. So we're going to be making a Brazilian walnut top desk with steel legs.
Yeah. So this is our Brazilian walnut wood. It's actually an incredibly hard wood. It's one of the hardest woods in the world. Obviously it comes from Brazil. I don't know if it's actually a type of walnut or not, but it's similar in color to a typical North American walnut or English walnut that you'll find. It's a little bit more yellow, and it's so dense that it acts more like composite decking when you're working with it than actual wood. You can see like almost no porosity in the end, no fiber, and yeah, it sounds pretty much like solid, like, I don't know, ceramic almost when you drop it.
When we worked on our previous project using the Brazilian walnut, we actually found that it was cheaper to source solid hardwood flooring than it was to get like actual boards. So we're actually going to be working with hardwood flooring. You can see that there are the grooves on the underside, whatnot, which means that we're also going to need an MDF layer on the underside to give the whole desk stability. This babe comes in.
Yeah, so we got our MDF piece over here. I actually used this as a router sled base at one point when we did another project with some real walnut, but maybe that's a video for another day. So this is almost the size. We'll have to trim it down a little bit more, make sure it's squared up, and then we'll start laying out our top. You ready?
I'm ready.
So look how clean the garage is. Faith cleaned the garage today.
Because I am awesome and I don't want you to ever forget it.
All right, I marked out the kind of rough layout. So if the finished desk we're looking at is going to be about 24 by 60. So, we're probably gonna end up chopping off about here and then along here. Okay, so we got our layout set up here. We're gonna kind of intermix a full length piece over here, and then we've got some that are joined. So we got that kind of sprinkled throughout. Looks really nice. This wood is really cool because you get so much variation. You can see this one is so red, it almost looks like it's a different species. Some of these, if you can pick it up on the camera, but this has almost like fluorescent yellow streaking in here. You'll see that a couple times. That kind of goes away once you add finish, but it's just wild to see when you're working with the wood.
So at this point we have the MDF cut down, and next up we're going to start gluing the hardwood flooring onto the MDF and all together.
So we're going to need a lot of clamps for this step, and if you're following along, head on down to your local Harbor Freight and just buy all the clamps that they have, because you're going to find out you need a lot of clamps.
But you'll always need more. Always.
In our haste, we kind of got ahead of ourselves. We started spreading out glue on boards. Then I remembered we need to put in our threaded inserts. So these are going to go through from the top of the MDF, and then the flooring is going to go over them. And then this is what we're going to thread bolts up through to attach to the legs. So we need to mount these guys before we put the top wood over the MDF. So I just marked out locations. We'll drill some holes, hammer them in, and then we'll put the basically the flooring, the wood, over the top of them. Oh, we got our inserts set in, so we're gonna put the first board down now. And just like that, we used up almost every single clamp on the wall. So that means we have to wait, a full half hour for this glue to set up before we can take the clamps off and start on the next row. So it is going to be a bit of a time-intensive process, just that we have to do it step by step, waiting the half hour between, but that's not a big deal. So we're going to call it for tonight. We'll come back out tomorrow and start on the next row. And then hopefully, this is narrow, so it's going to be, I don't know, maybe 2 hours and we'll have all of them on. So it's not a big deal. So this morning we got another 2 boards on. We run out of clamps pretty quickly, so we kind of have to stagger it. But I think we'll be able to do the last 3 now. So. Alright, here's our precarious clamp up for the last bit. We're going to let this dry for a while. It's workable in a half hour, but the next thing we're going to do is trim these to size, so we want it to fully cure before we take the saw to it. So I guess it's probably time to go get an ice cream cone. So we gave it a full 24 hours to cure, and now we're going to take off all the clamps and then trim it to size. So we got the track saw out. We're going to start trimming the back edge first. So we're pretty much just going to go and take off the glue that dripped down the back, make sure it's squared up nicely, and then we'll use that as kind of our reference edge, and we'll use the square to go from that side all the way around. Alright, so we got the top trimmed down. What we're going to do now is make some molding strips to go around. You can see the bottom side of the flooring has grooves in it, and the tongue and groove on the sides. So what we need to do is basically carve out a solid block from this piece. So we're going to shave off on the table saw, piece along here, and then we'll make a second cut along here, and that'll leave us with kind of a full width unobstructed strip of trim that'll go around, and then that'll cover up all the joints, and then we'll do a nice 45 miter all the way around, so we have solid wood trimming it out.
The trim pieces all sliced to the appropriate width. So next up we're going to cut the 45 so that we can put the trim all the way around.
We got the first side glued on. It's got the 45-degree kind of chamfer cut over here. So now it's just a matter of cutting the rest, fitting them up, gluing them, and then the top's done after a lot of sanding.
Yeah. Guys, we were still gluing on the trim pieces all the way around the desktop. At this point, those have been glued on, they've cured, we removed the clamps, and I went ahead and sanded it. I'm pretty allergic to the Brazilian walnut, and it's really messy when you sand, obviously, and so I didn't want to have the camera in here for that. But I sanded it all the way down through 400 grit, so we have a nice smooth top to work with. So the next thing that I'm going to do is put on some polyurethane. So I'm a dummy, and I thought that I had set up the camera to record while I was putting on polyurethane. However, I apparently forgot to hit record, and so there is no such footage. I used this Minwax wipe-on poly. I really like to use wipe-on poly. I feel like it dries a lot better. So I'm gonna let this dry, then I'll do a quick sand between coats, and we'll be able to get this finished up. Have wiped off all of the sanding dust, and now I'm going to work on putting on my second coat.
So we are now to the point where we're going to start doing the legs for the desk. So we've got some steel. We went over to our local steel kind of offcuts store. They are pretty cool. Everything's $1 a pound. It's got some really great pricing. I think this was like $4, which you can't beat. So what we have is 1x1 and then 3x1. So it's going to be a pretty drastic looking kind of profile to the legs. And I'll put up a drawing of what the design is going to be so you can see what we're going to work on. But the first step is to cut some stuff up and then we'll start tacking it together. Alright, we got everything welded up now. So the next step is going to be to go and grind down all these terrible welds that I did. As you can see, I'm no welder. My goal here is to kind of just fill all the gaps as well as I can, so that when we grind everything, it's going to look really smooth. I'm not going for like the cool big TIG weld bead style that is popular with the Instagram welders. I've got this little old Harbor Freight rig, and it's good for gluing metal together, and that's about it. Yeah, so that's the welding process. Next up is going to be grinding it down so that it looks shiny like this one, and we get all the mill scale and rust off the outside of the metal here. Got everything ground down nice and smooth. So the next thing to do is patch these open ends on this 1-inch pipe. So you see I cut some squares, and we're gonna tack those on, grind them down, cut them, kind of round it all over, make it nice and smooth, and we'll see if we can make this look like one continuous piece. Welded on, so I did some kind of tacks all the way around. This is what we bolt it onto the tabletop with. So basically we made some tabs and then clamped them in place, bolted them to the table so everything was lined up, removed the bolts, pulled them over here, welded them up like you just saw, and now we're pretty much ready. So the next step is going to be to get these guys cleaned up for paint. So we got a nice even coat of paint on the legs. They're probably fully cured by now, so we're going to go ahead and assemble the desk and then bring it inside. We used some lovely 3/8 hardware on here because that's the size of the skirt we had. That's probably a bit of overkill for holding these legs down, but
safety first.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Alright guys, so this is the finished desk. I've actually had it in here for a little while and I've been using it and loving it. I love the design, I love how sturdy it is, and just how functional it ended up being. I ended up trolling Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace a little bit, and I found this great West Elm chair to pair with it, and I think that it ended up just coming together so nicely. All in, it ended up being cheaper than anything that I could have found at a big box store, and it's obviously way higher quality. So if you are considering making your own desk, I would definitely recommend it. It's totally worth the time and effort. Also, if you haven't liked and subscribed, be sure to do that for more great videos. We'll see you next time.